My daughter called on Father's Day, her voice slow, cold. "Dad, don't come. My husband doesn't want you here." I set the picture frame down, felt my heart skip a beat, then smiled. 2 hours later, I was sitting in a cafe 3 blocks from her house, watching my phone buzz with 22 missed calls. On the other end, the one knocking on her door, wasn't me. It was the buyer, and the contract had been signed a week ago. "Dad, don't come over today. My husband doesn't want you here." The words hit me like a sudden gust of cold wind, sharp enough to cut through the quiet warmth I'd wrapped around myself all morning. It was Father's Day, the day that, at least in my heart, was meant to be about connection, family, and a reminder that despite the years and the changes, there was still a thread tying us together. I had been sitting at the small kitchen table, sunlight filtering through the lace curtains, the smell of freshly brewed coffee lingering in the air. My hands had been busy wrapping a small gift, a framed photograph of the three of us taken more than 20 years ago, back when her mother was still alive, and her hair was tied in playful little braids. Father's Day is louder than other holidays. It slams through the door with advertisements and upbeat radio hosts and strangers who call you sir too kindly. I don't mind. The loudness can't reach the place where the quiet sits. I ironed my good shirt, white, thin enough at the collar to remember every Sunday service we ever attended. I had planned to drive across town with a small gift. A wooden frame I sanded smooth myself, a photo of the three of us at the pier the summer before Nora's diagnosis. The sun in the picture looks like it's made of brass. Emily, my M, has her arms wrapped around both our waists like she believed we could hold the weather together. I checked my phone before I left. "On the way," I typed, and then I didn't send it. Habit has saved me more than intention ever did. The phone lit up by itself. "Emily." The name still sits in my chest like a drawer that won't close. "Hi, sweetheart," I answered, already smiling, already hearing what I wanted to hear. "Hurry, Dad. The grill is hot. Bring that mustard you like." Her voice came thin, stretched, apologetic. "Dad, listen, please don't come today." I stopped in my kitchen, one hand on the chair, one on the thin air above it. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "It's just," Daniel thinks, "well, he says today is for our new family unit, and he doesn't want a scene." "A scene," I repeated, tasting the word as if it were something sour. I stared at the gift bag on the table, the blue tissue paper I'd fussed with too long. "Emily," I said, gently, the way you speak to a bird caught indoors. "It's Father's Day." "I know," she whispered. "That's why I'm calling, so you don't show up and, Dad, please, don't come. Not today." There is a version of me who argues. There's a version who says I paid for half that roof, who says I stood beside your mother through chemo until the world ran out of things to take, who says I changed your diapers with one hand and studied payroll spreadsheets with the other, who says I have never not come when you called. There is a version who says, "Over my dead body, Emily." That version lives in the blood's hot rooms. I have visited him, but I do not live there. "All right," I said, "if that's what you want." "It's what Daniel wants," she murmured. "What do you want?" Silence. I could hear a fork clink. I could hear my own breath making careful shapes. "I want peace," she said finally, and she sounded so tired I could see the future sag in her shoulders. "Then have peace," I said. "I'll stay away." "I'm sorry," she said again, small, small. "I love you. I love you, Em." I hung up because I didn't know how to tell her that love and boundaries sit at the same table without throwing plates. I hung up because a father's job is not to be everywhere, but to be right when he is. The house didn't move. The coffee had cooled. The frame on the table looked like a lie. The picture looked like the truth trapped in wood. I picked up the frame and laughed, not unkindly. Not today. Then, I told the glass. I boxed the frame, slid it onto the top shelf of the pantry, and stood beneath the quiet for a few long seconds, the way a diver stands on the edge of a board, counting the pulses in his thumb. When I moved again, it was with the steadiness of a man who knows where his shoes are, who knows where he put the papers. The folder waited in the drawer beside the old cutlery, thin knives, bent spoons, proof that even metal curves if you ask it the right way. I pulled out the folder, the one with the gray tab and the small label in my tidy hand. Contingency. I am not proud of having it. I am proud of knowing when to open it. I sat at the table with the folder and dialed a number I hadn't needed to dial yet. Grant and Holbrook, came the bright voice of a woman who always sounded like morning. It's Michael Reed, I said. Is William in? Mr. Reed, she sang, a little delighted. Happy Father's Day. Thank you. Claire, I said, and meant it. Is William in? For you, he's always in, she said. The line clicked. William's voice arrived with its usual arrangement of confidence. He once told me that law is a second language you study not to speak, but to listen when it speaks to you. Michael, he said, I thought today you'd be busy being celebrated. Turns out I've got an opening, I said. Are we still set up for immediate execution on Package C? He paused. Paper rustled. You're sure? Yes. Michael, he said gently. Lawyer shed for friend. You don't have to do this today. I do, I said. I would like it done before noon. A long breath from his end. Understood. We can file electronically. I'll have Claire notarize the transfer affidavit we pre-signed last month. The buyer's funds posted Friday. All we need is your go. You have it, I said. And, Will? Yes. Don't call the house, I said. Call me. There will be emotion there. Then I'll call you, he said softly. You doing all right? I'm doing right, I replied. When I hung up, I felt something unlace behind my ribs I didn't know had been tied. I wrote a note on a yellow pad, 2 words, simple as a weather report. Proceed. I left it under the salt, a habit from years of leaving reminders where the eye, tired of grief, still travels. I got my keys. I locked the door. I stepped into a day that had dressed itself in polite blue. You should know the house before we take it away. White clapboard. A blue door Emily chose because 30 years earlier, she'd pointed at a postcard of a Greek island and declared, at 10 years old, that door is what happiness looks like. When she and Daniel married, they rented an apartment over a dry cleaner that smelled like hot plastic buttons. When she turned 28, I bought the house and said, it's yours as long as you treat it like you earned it. She kissed my cheek and said, we'll pay you back, I swear. I told her the door was hers to paint whatever color she wanted. She chose the blue from the postcard. Sometimes we love with our hands. I fixed the porch steps. I replaced the faucet that coughed rust. I regrouted a bathroom tile with the patience of a man kneeling in a chapel. Daniel watched and, often, didn't help. He was not a cruel man. He was a careless one. Carelessness can hurt more. Cruelty at least admits it has teeth. When Nora was dying, Emily slept in our house every night for 30 days. Daniel came twice, once with flowers, once with expensive chocolates he ate during the drive. After the funeral, I moved through the rooms like the tide promising to return, though it never does. I tell you all this because people ask me later, neighbors, the woman at the bakery, William the lawyer. Michael, was it revenge? I understand the question. We like simple shapes. A story should fit inside the mouth. But Father's Day is not a straight line, and love is not a country with only rivers. If I tell you I loved my daughter more than my good name, will you forgive me for what comes next? If I tell you the blue door, her door, was painted with my checkbook and her laughter, will you understand why I stood at the curb that day and did not go closer? At 10:11 a.m., a gray sedan turned onto the street, unremarkable in the way of vehicles that carry remarkable news. A man stepped out in a navy sport coat, the afternoon already folded into a clipboard he hugged to his chest. The buyer had dispatched his agent to conduct the ceremonial unpleasantness. He looked up, saw me at the curb, hesitated, then approached with a professional's careful smile. "Mr. Reed?" "Yes." "I'm Martin," he said. "We spoke last week about the contingency timeline." He glanced at the house, and the faint muscle of his jaw tensed. "Are you sure you don't want me to wait until tomorrow?" "I'd like it done before noon," I said. "If it's done today, it's done cleanly." He nodded. "As you wish." He swallowed, then added, "I'm sorry." "Me too," I said. "But sorry has nothing to do with right." Martin checked his watch. "The courier's already filed the electronic transfer. Funds are cleared. Deed is recorded. Legally, the property is under new ownership as of," he glanced again, 10:09 a.m. He winced like it hurt to say it. "I'll go to the door." "Thank you," I said. "Do your job. I meant." He walked up the path I laid stone by stone one summer when Emily wanted a place for potted herbs. The rosemary is twice the size of its pot now, unruly, fragrant, the kind of plant that insists on being exactly what it is. He knocked. Daniel opened the blue door. He wore a smart polo and a face that had learned the habit of looking down at people, even the ones he had to tilt his chin up to see. He looked at Martin's clipboard and then passed him at me, and then the habit of looking down failed him. "Yes?" he said. The word had 2 syllables and a warning. "Good morning, sir," Martin said gently. "I'm here on behalf of Arden Properties." He introduced himself, his role, the legal fact of the morning as simply as possible, with the softness of someone who knows the world is not often simple. "There's been a transfer of ownership. I'm here to ask that you and your family prepare to vacate the premises today." Daniel laughed. It wasn't a big laugh. It was a laugh like a broken zipper. "That's absurd," he said. "This is our home. Until 10:09 a.m. "It was," Martin said, not unkindly. "Now it is the property of Arden. We'll give you time to gather immediate belongings. There will be a moving crew tomorrow for the rest." Emily appeared over Daniel's shoulder, her hair pulled back, no makeup, the good kind of tired that motherhood makes sacred. When she saw me at the curb, she flinched like she'd bumped into a ghost. Our eyes met and I did not look away. I wanted her to see it, the quiet, the love that would not change its name even when the weather did. "Dad," she said. Then, to Daniel, urgent. "Daniel, what is this?" Daniel's jaw moved the way people's do when they realize the story might not be about them. "Please, call your father," Martin said to Emily, and I blessed the man for it, for knowing the shortest road between 2 points is not always a line, but sometimes a mercy. "He'll explain." Emily ran down the porch steps barefoot. For a heartbeat, she was 10 again, knees skinned, the kind of child who believed every bruise could be turned into a story that ended with ice cream. She reached me, breathless. "What are you doing?" she asked, and her voice contained every version of me. The father who taught her to ride a bike, the man who said no to a later curfew, the person who did not come today because she asked him not to. "I'm doing what you asked," I said. "I'm not coming." "Don't be clever," she snapped, the hurt boiling. "What is this?" "Do you remember, I said softly, "what we promised your mother the night she took her last real breath?" Her face went wide and bright with memory the way a house fills with light when a door opens. "We promised to never go home angry," she whispered. "And we also promised her," I said, "that we would protect each other's dignity, even from ourselves." Daniel had come down the steps now, puffing in his small way. "I'm calling the police," he announced, as if the idea were an invention. "This is illegal." "It isn't," I said. "But call them. They will tell you why." I handed him William's card because nothing is more unsatisfying to a small tyrant than realizing his tyrant is paperwork. "Dad," Emily said, grabbing my arm. "Why?" I looked at my daughter. The day still wore its polite blue. The rosemary still scented the air with the stubborn goodness of things that refuse to be dramatic. "Because love," I said, "is not a room for you to lock someone out of. Because you told me not to come. Because you let him tell you how much I count. Because this house was a gift you started treating as a right. Because rights without respect are not rights. They're demands. And demands don't build families." Her eyes filled. Not the loud kind of tears, the kind that pool because the face is trying to be brave for too many people at once. "I just wanted peace," she said. "You're married to a man who mistakes control for peace," I said gently. "That is a lesson you're going to learn with or without me. I prefer you learn it on a day the world calls mine." "Dad," she whispered, "we can fix this." "We can," I said, "but we have to fix us first." Behind her, Daniel shouted something into his phone that sounded like threat dressed as law. Martin stood with his hands folded, a weather vane pointing toward the nearest safe harbor. "I can give you 2 hours," Martin said, voice low. "We have that discretion." Emily blinked at him, then at me. "2 hours?" she echoed, as if time itself were new. "You'll need to pack what matters," I said. "I paid for a storage unit in your name. You'll find the key under the 3rd brick step, left side." I paused. Not everything is punishment. She turned toward the steps, then back to me again. "Are you coming in?" "You asked me not to come," I said. And it was only a little cruel. I found a table at a cafe 3 blocks away with a window that framed the blue door if you leaned enough. I ordered coffee and the sort of pastry people apologize to themselves for eating. I set my phone face down and watched the street behave like nothing was happening. It is one of the world's private jokes that most tragedies look like errands from a distance. At 11:07, my phone buzzed with William's number. "It's done, Michael," he said. "The transfer is on record. If there's trouble, we're ready." "There's trouble," I said, "but it's not the kind that uses a gavel." "You all right?" "I am," I said. I surprised myself with the truth of it. "I'm very tired, and I'm all right." "You know this will be messy," he said. "The public kind. The public already thinks grief is bad manners," I said. "Let them think what they like." He sighed, then let the silence be company instead of absence. "Call me if you need me," he said, and we hung up. The cafe door chimed, and 2 teenagers tumbled in, smelling like rain and summer. They argued about lemonade in a way that made me want to pay for their drinks and their college. I smiled. The day, for all its sorrow, refused to be just one thing. At 11:29, my phone lit again. Emily, 9. I watched it count up to 12, then 15. At 19, I answered. Dad, she said. The word cracked in the middle. He's on the floor. What happened? I asked, standing before my legs new. She gasped. He got angry and he threw his phone and slipped on the... He hit his elbow and he's not... Dad, he's not crying. He's just breathing like he can't find it. Panic, I said. He's having a panic episode. Like when a car backfires and you think it's a war, she whispered. Yes, I said. Get him a paper bag. Tell him to breathe into it. Slow. In through the nose. Count 4. Hold 4. Out through the mouth. 8. I paused. Then tell him I'm not coming. Dad, she pleaded. You asked me not to, I said. And I am a father who keeps his word. She made a small sound like the start of a prayer. He says you're cruel. I'm a boundary, I said. Cruelty is a different room. Silence, then the ragged rhythm of someone breathing like instruction can become belief if you do it long enough. Okay, she said. Okay. He's calmer. Good, I said. Now listen. I'm listening. Objects don't earn you safety, I said. People do. And people who require you to trade your father for their comfort will one day require you to trade yourself. Leave that house today because it no longer makes you bigger. It makes you smaller. She was quiet so long, I heard my own advice from years ago echo back, a hallway of former selves. She cleared her throat. Will you meet me somewhere after? Yes, I said. The pier. The pier, she repeated, and I pictured the brass sun caught in the old photo. 2 hours? 2 hours, I said. She hung up to go carry new weight. I finished my coffee slowly, then not at all. I folded a napkin the way Nora liked, the corners aligned just so, like a proof of life. You'd have hated this, I told the empty chair across from me. You'd also have made me do it sooner. I considered the sweetness at the corner of my mouth and decided it was not hunger. People will tell you certain moments change you. I don't think that's true. Moments announce you. They pull the sheet off the statue you've been chiseling in secret. That day, I wasn't new. I was revealed. At 12:07, I paid for my coffee and walked back toward the blue door. The street had put on a different expression, the way rooms do after a fight, nothing broken, everything rearranged. A rental van idled at the curb. A neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, stood on her lawn with a watering can, like a prop in a play that had forgotten its own scene. She gave me a look I've seen 1,000 times, the one mothers give men who bleed in public. Concern, irritation, respect, mostly curiosity. Mr. Reed, she called softly. Mrs. Alvarez, I nodded. Do you need anything? She asked, and I loved her for not pretending she didn't know anything. I need this day to end, I said. Don't you? She smiled, then frowned at the blue door. I always liked that color, she said. Me too, I said. Maybe the new owners will keep it. Maybe, she said, in the voice of women who have seen the maybe in men. Emily came down the steps with a box labeled Kitchen in a hand I recognized as mine. There is a way of writing letters that children inherit without asking, a slope to the R's, a certainty in the T's. She set the box in the van and turned to me like sunlight turning to a window. We're going, she said. She looked smaller, then larger, then herself. Daniel is not speaking to me. Then he is speaking the only language he knows, I said. That's unkind, she murmured. And then, a moment later, that's accurate. I tilted my head toward the porch. Do you have the frame? I asked. She blinked. What frame? The one I made you? I said. For today, I held my breath. Of us at the pier. Her mouth shaped surprise. I don't, Dad, you didn't bring it. No, I said. But you might still have it. I nodded to the door. Look under the welcome mat. She stared at me, then at the mat, then back at me. You didn't. I did, I said. Yesterday. Emily went to the door, lifted the mat, and found the thin parcel I'd slipped there the afternoon before, when I'd stopped by to oil the porch swing because I cannot stop myself from fixing squeaks. She unwrapped the paper delicately, the way people open presents when they want to keep the paper for reasons that are not about thrift. When she saw the photograph, she made a sound I have not heard since Nora laughed and cried at the same time. Oh, she said. One syllable. A country. Oh, Dad. I thought, I said, if the door had to lose us, it should at least gain something honest. She traced the picture's edge with her fingertip the way we touch pain when we think no one will notice. I wanted you today, she said, and the truth of it undid me. I wanted you to want me, I said, which is not the same. She nodded. I know. Daniel appeared then, carrying 2 suitcases, his face set with the stubborn dignity of men who think leaving is weakness. He looked at me, then at the frame in Emily's hands, then away, because there are some things that can't be met head-on without losing your balance. He loaded the suitcases into the van and slammed the door as if noise could argue with fact. He got into the driver's seat. Emily remained on the walkway a moment longer. What will you do now? She asked. I'm going to the pier, I said. If you want to meet me. She smiled, and the smile was so much like her mother's that for a second the day forgave itself. We'll be there. I raised an eyebrow. She followed my gaze to the car. Maybe not we, she said. But me? She climbed in. The van pulled away from the curb, and the house exhaled. Martin, watching from the porch with the polite grief of his profession, lifted a hand. I lifted one back. The rosemary moved in the small wind like someone remembering a song. 2 hours later, the neighbors would say they heard crying from the White House with the blue door. They did. But it wasn't the kind that asks for pity. It was the kind that asks for change. I chose a bench with one slat cracked, a flaw I couldn't fix without tools. I sat with my hands open on my knees, palms up, the way monks do when they're asking the air to be gentle. The pier was busy with fathers wearing novelty ties, toddlers waging sincere wars against seagulls, teenagers pretending not to notice one another. I liked being unknown inside a day, meant to recognize men like me. When Emily arrived, she came alone. She wore a sweatshirt that had been mine years ago. Gray, too big, etched with a college logo from a season when I believed better coffee would save us all. She sat beside me without speaking. For a time, we watched a boy throw bread at the water and a dog regret not being a bird. I'm angry at you, she said finally. I know, I said. I'm angrier at me, she added, almost a whisper. I know that, too. She laughed without joy. Do you know everything? I know the things you taught me, I said. Which is most of what matters. She held out the frame. I brought this, she said, as if offering proof she could still choose right. I took it and placed it on my lap, the photo of us catching the sun as it fell toward the water. the day a shade of brass I thought only memory could afford. Your mother, I said, would tell me to soften. She would also tell me to stop paying for people to learn what kindness is. I'm not people, Emily said. I'm yours. You are, I said, which is why I am harder on you than the world is. Because the world will take from you what you do not protect. And because I want you to know how to keep what you love. She folded into herself, then unfolded like a map showing roads you didn't know were there. I'm leaving him, she said. She didn't cry when she said it. She cried after, silent, the way rain starts out of a clear sky and makes everyone check the forecast for their souls. I put my arm around her the way I did when her knees were smaller. If you do, I said, do it for the right reasons. What are the wrong ones? To punish him, I said. To punish yourself. To act out of humiliation. To prove a point to people who haven't earned hearing it. And the right reason? Because you know, I said, that your dignity is a country he refuses to learn the language of. She laughed that broken zipper laugh Daniel had gifted the morning. You make everything a geography lesson. Only the important things, I said. Home. Boundaries. Where the shore ends and the ocean starts. She nudged the frame with her knuckle. Do you forgive me? Forgiveness, I said carefully, is not a switch. It's a practice. But I started practicing the minute you called. She exhaled, then inhaled in a way that made the air look like a yes. We watched the water pretend to be still while moving. After a while, she asked, what happens to the house? It belongs to Arden now, I said. They'll rent it. Maybe to a family who knows how to keep a door blue. She winced. That hurts. I know, I said. And then, because love tells the truth even when it tastes like salt. Some pains teach faster than any gift I could give. She squeezed my hand. Can we go see Mom? She asked. Of course, I said, because some questions do not belong to the part of the day that doubts. We walked back toward where the car would be if I had remembered to park it closer. Emily tucked her arm into mine. We passed a father cutting a sandwich into triangles his son would later insist should have been squares. The sun had climbed into the part of the sky that forgives no one and lights everything. Life does not pause for our lessons. It marks its own tests. Nora's headstone is not the fanciest in the row. It's not even the most honest. It says her name, the dates a weather knows too well, a line Emily chose. She taught us to close doors gently. When we got to the small your turn in the grass near the willow trees, Emily laid the frame at the base of the stone and wept. It was not a long weeping. It was the kind that releases a knot and leaves the rope stronger. Hi, Mom, she said, wiping her face with her sleeve. I asked Dad not to come today. I'm sorry. She smiled crookedly. He came anyway, just not to the house. I touched the stone with my fingertips because I still do not know how to touch absence without pretending it's a thing. Nora, I said, I did the thing you told me I would need to do. I hated it less than I thought and more than I admit. A breeze moved across the grass the way a hand smooths a wrinkled shirt. The willow branches nodded like polite judges. We stood there and let the air have us until it gave us back. On the way home, we stopped at a grocery store because the body makes demands that have nothing to do with philosophy. Emily pushed the cart, and I walked beside it as if escorting a small parade. We bought eggs, bread, tea, honey, the kind of things you need when you're going to start over. At the checkout, the cashier said, "Happy Father's Day," and I said, "It is," and meant it. We took the bags to my car and paused before getting in. "I can stay with you for a while," I offered. She shook her head. I think I should be alone. Not alone alone. Just not with him, not with you. With me. That's the hardest place, I said. That's the right place, she replied. I handed her the keys to the storage unit. There's a couch in there, I said. And a lamp your mother always thought was ugly. She was right, Emily said, laughing, which made the day make a new shape. Call me if you need help picking out a mattress, I said, and we both understood that mattresses are never about sleep. She hugged me, and the hug lasted exactly as long as it needed to. When she pulled away, she put her palm on my cheek, the way she did when she was small and thought faces told time. I'm sorry, she said again. Don't be sorry, I said. Be better. She nodded and got into her car. She drove away. I watched until the red taillights were small punctuation on a long sentence. Then I went home to my one plate, my one chair, my picture on the pantry shelf, alone, but not abandoned. The phone buzzed the rest of the afternoon. Some calls were my sister, 3 times, one from Mrs. Alvarez, twice, one from a number I didn't recognize that turned out to be Daniel, once, and 9 from no one. Voicemails with nothing in them but the sound of being human. I turned the phone face down and made tea. I folded a napkin the way Nora liked and put it beside the cup. I sat and did not speak to the air. Some days you do not need to rehearse your loneliness. It knows its lines. At 10:11 a.m., when the light had the exhausted quality of a party you should have left earlier, my phone buzzed. A text from Emily. I'm at the unit. I found Mom's ugly lamp. You were both wrong. It's perfect. Thank you. I love you. I typed, love you more, and didn't send it. Then I typed, love you exactly enough, and sent that. There are parts of the story that belong to days with different names. There is the part where Daniel came to my house once, eyes swollen from lack of sleep and pride, to negotiate the rent on a home that no longer wanted him. I made him tea, and we spoke like men who don't know if the other one will stand. I was not cruel. He was not kind. Mostly, we were 2 people who had run out of ways to pretend our flaws were furniture that could be shoved against a different wall. He left without shouting. He left without shaking my hand. There is the part where Emily found an apartment with a kitchen too small for her hope, and learned that hope has nothing to do with square footage. Alvarez. She called me on Tuesdays to tell me the new plants she was trying to keep alive, and the old habits she was trying to let die. She cried once, then twice, then less, then not. She went to therapy. She learned to enjoy silence that wasn't punishment. She bought a mattress that didn't feel like an apology. There is the part where the house with the blue door became a rental to a family with a girl who drew chalk suns on the porch, and a boy who asked me, on a Tuesday, when I went to fix a squeak I no longer had a right to fix, "Are you the man who painted the door?" I said yes, and he nodded like I had told him a secret he had suspected. "It's a good door," he said. I said, "It is." There's the part where Father's Day came around again, and Emily and I met at the pier. We brought the frame. We didn't bring the past. We had hot dogs and remembered that grief is not a problem to be solved, but a person in the room you pass the salt to. We watched the water being water. We stayed until the brass sun agreed to set. And there is the part where people ask me after readings like this, because sometimes I tell it in church basements, sometimes in community centers, sometimes over cheap coffee in rooms with folding chairs. Do you regret it? I think they want me to tell them how to live without consequence. I think they want the kind of forgiveness that doesn't cost anything. I tell them this. I regret not teaching my daughters sooner that love without boundaries is weather. It will drench you and leave. I regret all the mornings I let Daniel borrow our peace because I thought peace would build interest. I regret saying yes to expenses that looked like affection and no to conversations that looked like work. But I do not regret the blue door. I do not regret the 2 hours. I do not regret drinking my coffee while the world cried a little and learned a different word for home. If you want a moral, you have to bring your own. Mine is small enough to keep in my pocket. Never go home angry. Protect each other's dignity, even from yourselves. And when someone tells you not to come, believe them. Then love them enough to leave. Emily learned that quiet has temperatures. The first night alone in her one bedroom, the quiet was cold enough to fog the inside of her ribs. She texted me a photo at 11:41 p.m. The ugly lamp glowing amber beside a stack of folded towels on the couch. "The lamp is a campfire," she wrote. I replied, "Add tea. Campfires like company." On Tuesday, I stopped by with a bag of groceries, eggs, bread, a jar of honey, a head of garlic, a handful of lemons, the kind of things you can build a home from if you begin with a pan and a reason. Emily had written a list on a sticky note, the penmanship a mirror of mine with a touch of speed. Broom, plunger, dignity. I put the broom and plunger by the sink and pointed to the last word. "Already brought," I said, tapping her chest. She rolled her eyes the way daughters do when their fathers are right before they're ready. We built a routine sturdy enough to lean on. Mornings were hers. Evenings she sometimes offered to me. On Thursday, we ate soup at her tiny table and took turns telling each other what we were learning. She learned she sleeps better without the apology-shaped dip in the mattress. She learned the neighborhood cats fought like old poets. She learned her own laugh when no one was grading it. I learned that lentils still take 30 minutes, no matter how much you want them to hurry. At the end of the week, a letter came, official, hard-edged, the kind of font that straightens your spine. It was from Daniel's attorney. "We are prepared to contest the transfer of the property, undue influence, emotional distress, marital rights." The words lined up like soldiers who'd never seen rain. Emily looked at me over the paper. "What does this mean?" "It means he wants to keep fighting the last fight," I said, "which is a way of not having to show up for the new one." "Do we have to answer?" "We should," I said, "and we will." I called William. He said, "Michael, you've done everything with handrails." He drafted a response that turned their soldiers into a marching band with no instruments. Polite, thorough, final. The transfer predates any marital claim. The title was never in the wife's name. Consider this matter closed. The law can be kind when the facts are. That night, Emily texted me a photo of a mug of tea beside a book and a pair of socks trying to be brave. "I didn't cry today," she wrote. I replied, "I did. It's okay. We're sharing the work." Daniel did not understand mirrors that weren't made of praise. For years, rooms had been furnished with people happy to reflect him taller. Losing the house forced him to meet a mirror that only showed his own height. He called me once, at 7:06 on a Sunday morning, when the world still smells like the idea of bread. "I hope you're happy," he began, which is how men ask for the past back without admitting the future's price. "I'm not happy," I said. "I'm right. There's a difference." "You humiliated me," he said. "You humiliated us." I set a boundary. I said, "Humiliation is what pride feels like when it meets a wall." He breathed like he was arguing with air. "I loved her," he said, and I believed him. Love without respect is a generous fire in a paper house. "Then learn the shape of loving her now," I said. "It isn't through me." He snorted. "You've poisoned her against me." She's drinking water, I replied. If you're thirsty, you'll taste the difference. He hung up because men like Daniel are not trained to stay for the second half of a truth. Weeks later, I heard he'd moved into a friend's spare room. 2 windows, 1 broken blind, a couch that believed in the shape of a body like a superstition. He posted photos online of craft cocktails and gym mirrors, as if sweat could argue with grief. He messaged Emily the way some men think apologies have interest rates. I miss your laugh. Let's start over. I was stressed. Your father hates me. She wrote back once. My father doesn't hate you. He loves me. He sent a long paragraph about loyalty. She didn't reply. There is a silence that can be more generous than advice. He stopped by my house exactly once. I saw him pull up from the window and did not turn off the kettle. He stood at my door in a shirt he thought would earn him respect and shoes that had never walked far enough to find out what respect was. I want to negotiate, he said. That's a good verb, I said. But a bad premise. You and I have nothing to negotiate. The house is a finished story. I want an apology, he said. You'll want less when you get older, I replied. What you need is practice. He blinked, uncomprehending. I poured tea into a cup and handed it to him, because nothing good happens without something warm to hold. Here, I said. Sip. Then leave Emily to Emily. What about Father's Day? He asked suddenly, a boy behind a man's face. It ended, I said. And it began. He left without finishing the tea. Some people don't know how to drink if it isn't handed to them like a trophy. Courts are rooms where strangers decide what the past costs. We never had to go. William sent letters that folded like origami into finality. Daniel, for all his bluster, didn't have the appetite to pay lawyers to hear what I had already said for free. No. The case withered in the inboxes of men who charge by the 6 minutes. Real life, meanwhile, insisted. Emily enrolled in a night class on project management because she'd always managed the projects of men and wanted to learn how to invoice herself. She bought cheap curtains but then learned the geometry of sunlight. She kept plants alive by talking to them in the mornings. She began walking in the evenings, the kind of walking that looks like exercise but is actually geography, mapping the distance between what hurt and what helps. Sometimes we cooked together on video calls. She propped the phone against a jar and asked me about onions. Low heat, I said. Salt early. Onions tell the truth if you let them take their time. She sent me a photo of a golden pan and the caption, Truth Achieved. We ate apart and together, which is how families learn to pass the salt across miles. There were small stumbles. She went back once, for an afternoon conversation with Daniel at a cafe where chairs tried to be handsome. He cried in the way some men cry, with his jaw, and said he'd change, and she wanted to believe that wanting was equal to doing. She came to my house afterward and sat on the back step, chewing her thumbnail like an old habit. I almost said yes, she confessed. To what, exactly? I asked. She stared at the hydrangea bush I'd failed to keep blue. To trying without changing, she said finally. I almost said yes to pretending. You did not, I said, which is a yes to something else. What? To yourself. She tilted her head. Hard choice, she said. I nodded. Hardest, I agreed. We like to think our hearts break once, and then we're good at it. The truth is more like carpentry. You learn which wood drinks stain evenly. You learn what breaks when you over-tighten. You learn to measure twice, cut once, and keep sandpaper on hand for the edges that insist on splinters. Emily and I made lists, hers for her life, mine for mine. She wrote, rent, savings, therapy, friends who tell the truth, food that nourishes, music in mornings, no phone after 10, no replying to old hurts, appointments with future me. I wrote smaller lists. Walk. Call M Tuesdays. Fix the cabinet hinge. Read Nora's letters again. Say yes to the potluck invitation. Bring pie. She joined a community group that met on Thursdays in a room with fluorescent lights that had opinions about hope. People brought their divorced, their laid off, their emptied nests, their burnt casseroles, and we sat in a circle of metal chairs and learned not to apologize for existing. I went with her once when her courage had a headache. A man named Arturo talked about his son who hadn't called in 3 years. A woman named Tessa brought brownies and a laugh that made you want to do the dishes. When it was my turn, I told them I'd given a house back to Consequence and kept a daughter. They nodded the solemn nod people give when the math finally shows itself. At home, I found a new rhythm. I fixed the cabinet hinge. I joined a Thursday men's group that was mostly retirees, arguing about the ethics of lawn care and occasionally about art. I learned to say no with a period instead of a paragraph. I cleaned Nora's closet and kept exactly 6 things: her scarf that smelled like a chance of rain, the cardigan with a hole at the cuff, her recipe box, the necklace Emily wore at prom, the silly hat she bought in Paris and never wore, and a letter she wrote me on our 12th anniversary that begins, "I forgive you for burning the onions and for all the things you don't know you're trying to cook." Some afternoons I went to the Blue Door Street and parked at the end, like a man who doesn't want to be caught trespassing on his own past. The new family had hung wind chimes. The sound they made was honest. I waved once at the little boy. He waved back with both hands, the luxury of children who have not yet been asked to carry a key. On the next Father's Day, Emily came to the pier with a pie. "I baked this," she announced, already laughing because we both knew the crust would be ambitious. It was. Ambition is flaky when it's good and stubborn when it's not. We ate anyway. She was different in the way trees are different after storms. You don't notice the inch of growth until you stand where you stood last year and measure with your neck. See? She wore her hair shorter. She had a new habit of checking in with herself before she agreed to anything. She had learned the word no in lowercase and the word yes in her own handwriting. "How's the apartment?" I asked. "Not lonely," she said, a smile shading her answer. "Just quiet. And I like quiet that doesn't threaten me." "How's Daniel?" I asked. "Working out," she said. "Posting about hustle. Dating a little." She shrugged. "I want him to be happy far away." "Reasonable," I said. We shared the pie as gulls negotiated for crumbs. "Do you regret anything?" I asked. She took her time with the question. "I regret not listening to myself sooner," she said. "And I regret making you prove what I already knew." She glanced at me. "Do you?" "I regret not teaching you how to draw lines when you were small," I said. "And I regret thinking protecting you meant paying for your comfort." "That's a good regret," she said. "It doesn't punish. It instructs." We walked the length of the pier and back. A busker played a song Nora loved, and I let it rearrange my afternoon. On our way to the cars, Emily slipped her arm through mine. "I'm proud of us," she said. "We did something hard and stayed kind." "We did," I said. "Let's keep doing that." Autumn arrived in a suit that fit. The air learned to be honest. I found a letter in my mailbox addressed in handwriting that tried to look like authority and landed on Ernest. It was from Daniel. He didn't ask for anything. He apologized without adjectives. I grew up thinking strength was volume. He wrote, "I learned late that strength is agreement with the truth. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted to tell you I see what I tried not to. I'm working with a counselor. I'm learning how to say less and do more. Thank you for protecting Emily, even from the parts of herself that tried to disappear you. I didn't like you for a long time. I think that was because I didn't like me. I'm trying to. I sat on the front steps and read it twice. I didn't call him. I sent a note. Good. Keep going. Some conversations are healthiest at postcard distance. Emily read Daniel's letter and put it in a drawer. I'm not a test he needs to pass, she said. And I'm not a prize you get for growing up. She returned to her life, work, plants, community group, Tuesday calls. She bought a used bicycle and learned how cities breathe when you let the wheels tell you where the hills are. It took nearly a year for the last thread of the legal almost case to be cut. William called to tell me the file had been formally closed by the other side. No one wants to pay to be told no twice, he said, amused in the way men get when paperwork has the good manners to stop. We met for lunch to celebrate the unexciting victory of things staying where they belong. He raised a glass of iced tea. To boundaries, he said. To doors that stay blue, I added. He chuckled. You know the new owners wrote me. They wanted to know if there were any hidden easements or surprises left on the title. What did you say? I said the land was clean. He said, and the people, as always, are complicated. We ate sandwiches the way working men do when they've earned hunger. William said something I still think about. Law is a blunt tool, he said. It can protect you from harm. It can't make anyone good. That's different work. Whose work? I asked. Ours, he said, and gestured at the world. 2 years later, the pier was still there. The busker had new songs. We had new stories and the same frame. Emily had been promoted to a project lead. She wore a small ring on her right hand that meant I promised something to me. She had a friend named Jordan who made good coffee and asked better questions. They were not a couple. They were a possibility they didn't hurry. Daniel had moved to a different part of the city. Little news reached us. Occasionally, a photo surfaced. Him with a dog, him finishing a race, him standing beside a car that looked proud of itself. He sent me a Christmas card that said, I hope you're well. I replied, I am. Hope you are too. Respect is not always reunion. Often it is accurate distance. Emily phoned me one night in spring with laughter I recognized from before. I fixed the sink. She announced, me, with YouTube and a stubborn heart. You always had the heart, I said. Now you've got a wrench. She paused. I think I might meet someone, she confessed. Bring the wrench, I said. If he doesn't admire it, send him home. She snorted. You're impossible. I'm consistent, I said. 3 Father's Days have passed since the blue door learned to be a noun without us. I'm older in the natural ways, hair thinner, patience thicker, knees that file complaints if I stand up too quickly. Emily is not married. She doesn't owe the world a document to prove she has built a life. She shows it 1,000 daily ways. The way she laughs at the cat who likes the windowsill, the way she turns off her phone to turn toward a book, the way she says no with a smile. We meet at the pier with sandwiches wrapped in white paper and a thermos of coffee. The brass sun puts on its old show. We sit on the bench with the cracked slat and talk about nothing that is actually everything. The neighbor's new baby, the plant that refuses to bloom, the boss who finally learned to send emails with punctuation. Emily takes the frame out of her bag and sets it on her knee. I think I'm ready, she says. For what? I ask. To hang this, she says. On my wall. Good, I say, and the word is a blessing. Put it somewhere you'll walk by when you're in a hurry. She smiles. So it can slow me down? So it can remind you, I say, how we promised to never go home angry. We watch a family pose for a photo at the pier's edge. The father lifts his daughter high, and she squeals the sound children make when gravity pretends to let them win. Do you ever think about buying the house back? Emily asks suddenly. No, I say. Sometimes I drive past and wave at the window, but I don't think about owning it. I already own what matters. The day we left, the way we learned, your life. She nods, then leans her head on my shoulder the way she did when she was a child, and afternoons were larger. Thank you, she says. For what? I ask. For leaving, she says. For staying, she corrects. For both. We sit until the coffee is warm the way memories are, pleasant, with an aftertaste of what was. As we stand to go, a man with a familiar posture passes, a dog tugging at his arm. Daniel. He sees us. We see him. The dog decides we are friends and introduces us with a sniff. Daniel smiles, small, honest, unarmed. Emily, he says. Michael. He looks at the frame in her hands, then at the water. Looks like a good day. It is, Emily says. I'm glad, he replies. Take care. You too, I add. We walk away without looking back, because forgiveness does not need a witness. It needs practice, and a bench and a horizon that will keep returning even if you arrive late. At the car, Emily holds the frame up to the afternoon. Let's make a new photo, she says. We are, I reply, and take her picture laughing, the pier behind her, the sun pretending to be brass, the day officially ours again. Sometimes I still wake early and pour coffee for the silence. It no longer feels like an empty chair. It feels like a companion that knows when to speak. I fold a napkin the way Nora liked and place it beside the cup, because certain rituals are not about the person you lost, but the person you promised to be. There's a new picture on my wall now. Emily in her apartment, the ugly lamp Noble in the corner, the frame of us at the pier hung beside the door, where she'll see it when she leaves and returns. She's smiling in the photo, not like someone who won a war, but like someone who built a country and decided to live in it. If I'm asked again at the community group for my wisdom, I'll keep it small, portable, resistant to weather. Love doesn't excuse disrespect. Boundaries don't punish, they protect. Houses are made of materials. Homes are made of promises. When someone you love tells you not to come, don't. Then wait 2 hours, make a good decision, and meet them at the pier. Sometimes, the people you give the most to will be the first to tell you that you're not welcome. But dignity is worth more than any gift you could ever give. And when you protect it, you protect yourself. If this story touched you, hit that like button and let me know in the comments what you would have done in my place. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, true stories of betrayal, justice, and the sweet taste of revenge. Your voice matters here, and I read every single one.